All right, Alex, you've been very busy this past Emmy season. You've got two high-profile limited series, Roots and 11/22/63. They're two very different kinds of projects. Let's start off by talking about Roots, which just premiered this past week.
Yeah.
How'd you get involved with that?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Lost in the midst of time. I had a call sometime last year to ask if I was interested, which of course I would be, because Roots is, it's huge and an iconic thing. So of course I said yes, and like what happens a lot of time in the movie business is things just disappear, and then it suddenly reappeared very suddenly at some point, and kicked into action very quickly. We did it really quickly, actually. They sort of accelerated the schedule, so it was pretty crazy. It was like doing 4 full-on movies in just a few months. So it's been intense, but very exciting and gratifying this week to see it go out and see the huge amount of conversation and the huge amount of enjoyment of it, as well as being important and interesting. It's actually really entertaining as well. So it's just really gratifying to see people talking about it and really enjoying it, getting into it.
Well, the original Roots was such a landmark in television. I mean, I remember watching it I didn't watch it when it first came on, but I watched it on DVD. It's still watched today. It was like the widest viewed thing ever on TV. So were you intimidated at all to work on a remake of it?
Working on any film, and I've done a lot of them, it's always intimidating. It always seems like, it always seems like a huge task when you start, especially this one, as you say, because it comes with a lot of baggage. But I try to put the expectation of the baggage very much to one side. I didn't go back and watch the original at all. And I just thought the best way for me to deal with it was just to deal with what I was seeing and treat it as fresh, new material, rather than try and think of it as following on from something legacy. And the producers, and Mark Wolper, one of the main producers whose father had produced the original one, so Mark, it's a family thing and it goes back through his family. So he was very clear to me. He said, we want this to be something new, and we want to honor the old one in the sense that we want to do it with real integrity, and we want people to really believe what they're doing, which is hopefully what they hired me, because I love doing projects that really mean something to me. It's very important to me to be doing that. But they did give me carte blanche to try and just treat it as a new standalone thing. So that helps probably not feel the weight of expectation on your shoulders too much. I will go back and watch the original. I'm excited to go and see it, but I suspect they're very different beasts, and so they should be, because this is a different. We're in a different time, and it makes sense to make it in a way that speaks to people, in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, judging just from the first episode, it is a different beast. I mean, part of that is the difference in the time that it's made. Obviously, TV's come a long way since then in terms of the amount of money that you can spend on it and the amount of time you can have to shoot it. So Roots is epic. It spans so much time. It spans continents. So as a composer, what were your initial ideas for it?
Well, it is epic. I mean, the story goes across more than 100 years, so it's a lot to take in. And so I guess, well, the first thing I wanted to do was write a Roots theme that could come in all the episodes and be transformed and form the backbone musically of the thing. And that was the very, very first thing I wrote on day one, sitting at my desk first thing in the morning. And it's the main theme that you hear every time the baby's, is held up and presented to the stars in each episode, and it comes at the end of most of the episodes as well. The end of episode 1, where Fiddler is comforting Kunta after the terrible whipping scene, and the theme is actually very uplifting, and it's supposed to give a sense of hope. And that's the one thing I felt very strongly, that there's so much despair and so much darkness in the story of slavery and the history of African Americans, that hope and uplift and moving forward and trying to look forward to the future, not just looking back in despair, was really important. So I hope that was my primary intention, is to try and give some of that, yeah, looking forwards as well. So that was where I started, and I tried to. It's a theme that can be played small or big, and can be played in a more downbeat way or an upbeat way. So I wanted to have that as the backbone, and then once that was in place and I played it to people and they really liked it, then that was like the jumping off point, you know, to start going back. We did everything in reverse. We rescored the episodes out of order in very higgledy-piggledy English, with enough to scramble anyone's brain. But I try and keep the overview. I try and think of it, you know, as a big arc, you know, not just as lots of little bits, but think, how is this story going to play out over the course of 8 hours, over 100 years, and try and make a journey in the music which starts off much more African. You know, the story starts in West Africa, and have a progression to going through something alien, where he gets transported to America and he gets displaced, and the music becomes quite synthy and strange and disorientated, because we're trying to see it through Kunta's eyes, not through ours. And then the music gradually starts having something of America seeping into it, and by the time you get to Chicken George, you've got some banjo, some bluegrass, and you have that character coming into it. And then you go into the Civil War, and you have the Civil War music. And at the end, I try to bring back the African. There's always an element or an echo of Africa, but try and bring it back to Africa full circle in the end, so that you feel that shape. So that's that. I try to have that big mental picture in my mind every day when I was battling with trying to write 5 hours of music.
Yeah, I mean, it is, like you said, it's like scoring 4 little feature films.
Yeah.
I mean, that first episode was about 90-some minutes.
Yeah, so episode 3 actually was running at 2 hours 20 without commercials, so quite long. Yeah.
Well, you've got a background in feature films,
right?
You've done fiction and documentary, so I guess that experience really helped jumping into this massive foray into television, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've probably done more feature films, really, a lot more than TV in a way. So it's more of a new experience. In a way, I treat everything like it's a feature film, you know. But the time schedules on TV are very different to a lot of features, so it's very compressed. So this was a logistical challenge, not only the time, but also we were recording stuff in West Africa. We did vocals and some instruments in West Africa, and we were recording orchestra in London, and I'm here in LA writing. So there's a lot of different things going on in different places all at once, so a lot to coordinate, and I have a great team of people to help me with that. It's sort of like a military operation, just trying to get music done over 3 continents. Exciting, but you know, it does take a lot of organization, especially in a short time frame.
You know, the timing of this show is really incredible. I mean, this past year we've also had a show like Underground, which deals in very similar territory. There's a wide array of shows on TV right now that have very diverse casts and that are opening up conversations about diversity and racism. So what can Roots, which is obviously about the starting point of so much of this, what can Roots add to that discussion?
Well, partly the joy and the interest of it for me is having it out there and seeing what discussions actually sort of come. You know, in a way, you can't. There are the obvious ones that we can all think about, you know, race relations, but it seems to have sparked off people talking about all sorts of things that I wouldn't have imagined. So it's sort of fascinating to watch the Twitter thing go. I'm not really a Twitter follower, but I've been watching it happening live and sort of been fascinated by the stuff that people are coming up with. For me, I think that just the basic thing is that, hard as it is to look back on difficult history, you can only understand where you are today by just understanding where, you know, where everything has come from. So understanding a little bit of history it's really important about moving forward, not just looking backwards. You know, and I'm thinking of our friend Snoop Dogg's comments there on Twitter. You know, he was saying, don't look back. And I get what he's saying. You know, I'm not black, as you can tell from the camera, so you know, I have maybe a different perspective. Although I hope my perspective is, you know, it's neutral. I like to feel like I'm colorblind, and I feel really thrilled to be a part of this. As I said, I love working on films that make a difference to me, and I have scored other films about African history. I did Mandela Long Walk to Freedom with Idris Elba a couple of years ago, and I did The Last King of Scotland quite a few years ago, which is about Idi Amin, set in Africa. And it's not like I've gone looking for these projects, but somehow they found me, which I'm very grateful for, because I do enjoy scoring things that mean something to me. So that's a long-winded answer of saying I'm not sure what Roots means, except it means something important to me personally, and if it means something important to lots of other people, that's exciting for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what's so special about Roots, not just this adaptation of it, but I think the reason why the original holds up so well is that, you know, yes, it's about slavery, but it's also about family, and it's about your roots. You know, I mean, it sparked genealogy, you know, finding your background.
It is. I mean, it's, you know, let's be clear, it is the African American story, and Kunta Kinte is a wonderful archetype for, you know, whether he was real or not. He's a great, you know, he's an icon for the Black American story. But it is a great universal story about anyone who's got, you know, roots in a different place. You know, my own family, my father came from Egypt when he was a little boy, and he was a refugee and came on a boat from Egypt. And I have a family story of people coming from different places and being transplanted to different lands. And so, you know, there is something universal. Everyone, if they look back far enough, has got a story of roots in them. So, you know, I don't want to sort of say this is, you know, Roots that's what it's all about. But for sure, anyone can find a universal story, and there's great love stories in it. You know, all of the strong relationships between Kunta and Belle and George and Matilda. I mean, they're great love stories and family stories, and of course, the family aspect is what probably carried the first one and what everyone thinks about it. You know, I think it was called a family drama or saga, and everyone can relate to, you know, the saga in their family for sure. That's a great strength of it.
Yeah, and I think that it shows perseverance in the face of adversity, you know.
Definitely, and that goes back to what I was saying about trying to find hope and moving forwards, rather than just the depressing aspect of it. But it's the resolve and the coming through, and the you know, the coming through out of the other end. And one of the clever things I think about Roots is that it doesn't make any false claims that after, you know, the Emancipation Proclamation that everything suddenly switched and was all good, because as we know, it's still not good. This country, America, is still coming to terms with that, which really happens very recently ago, you know, in the broad sweep of history. You know, it's just around the corner. So I think it's clever not to insinuate that everything was resolved instantly, but shows you the way forward and shows you the direction in which things, you know, need to move.
Right. So let's talk about 11/22/63. Very different kind of project, set in the past and in the present. How'd you get involved with that?
So I was approached originally by Kevin MacDonald, who I'd worked with on The Last King of Scotland, which is a movie I mentioned that may have been, you know, involved in me being asked for Roots originally. I don't know, but Kevin put me in touch with the producers. 11/22 is being made here, produced by J.J. Abrams. And Kevin was directing the pilot, and the producers, and Bridget Carpenter, who was a producer and writer, the showrunner on the show, had seen a lot of the films I'd done with Kevin, Touching the Void and State of Play and One Day in September. And she was a big fan of Kevin and the movies and the music that I'd done in those as well. So we talked early on with Bridget as well about how the music might work, and they sent me scripts to read, and we went from there.
So then what were those initial ideas, and then how did they develop into the themes for the show?
Well, the original, I think part of the thing about 1122 is that it is also very epic. It's a time travel show, and it's going backwards and forwards, covering this incredible sort of slice of American, another slice of American history. It's been a great American history year. Very exciting. I'm a big history fan, so I think one of the challenges was to draw it together somehow, because there are a lot of different characters. 1122's got one of its real strengths, and it's another great piece of TV. That and Roots, I mean, I can sit down and watch them both as a punter and enjoy them because they're just so well made. But one of the great things I love about 1122 is that it has these incredible cameos with people who come into an episode, have these amazing monologues and cameo parts, and then they sort of don't come back again in the other shows, but they've provided a wonderful window into a little episode or part of history. The one I'm thinking of is in episode 2 with the war veteran speech, where Jake is staying in digs somewhere, and he has this conversation, and this guy's telling him, being a war hero comes with a lot of baggage, and there's the most phenomenally well acted and written speech that's scored all the way through in a very under key way, but it provides really very nuanced and interesting insight into characters that you don't normally get in TV shows, because there usually isn't enough time in a TV show, in a 1 hour episode to get into it. But the writers on this decided they were going to approach this a little differently and give time to people to speak longer. The scenes are longer. It calls for longer music cues as well, which is what I love. Is having the music be able to get into its stride and have some narrative rather than just being lots of little bursts of things. But as it turns out, 1122 is a great love story, and for all of its time travel and excitement and action, it turns out to have tricked you, and at the end to be a great love story. And JFK is the backdrop, and it's the backbone of it. But the relationship between Jake and Sadie is so strong. It's really so touching by the end. I think it landed really well. Sometimes the last episode people can be disappointed, but I really feel like it lands tremendously well, and you feel satisfied as a whole. It really comes together. So it was nice to have that musical through line. I had a theme for Sadie, which you hear in episode 1, and then she disappears off and she comes back in slightly later on, and then she becomes stronger and stronger, and she becomes the musical backbone by the time you get to the finale. So I'm always looking for the backbone, apparently, from what I'm hearing myself. But you do try, and you try and find a route through something where you can guide an audience. Because the music is a little bit, I think, like an invisible character that can take the audience by the hand sometimes, or not by the hand, just gently ushering them in a direction that the director wants you to go without them knowing, or sometimes with them knowing as well. It depends what the style is, but we're trying to be like an offstage chorus or an offstage character, just to guide the audience a little bit. We did that with it was fun in 1122 because there is an invisible character, which is the past, and every time Jake goes back and tries to change the past, this force is trying to stop him. And so we wanted to have a musical motif, which you'll hear, which comes in the cellos and the basses, which is sort of sinister and goes round and round and tells you that it's the past pushing back on Jake. But we sort of had fun as well with some characters. You don't know if they're an agent of the past or whether they're just being plain mean to him. So it was sort of fun to give little clues and lay a trail. Sometimes you'll have a character, and I would just throw in the little past theme as a tiny little thing in the cellos and basses that you might or might not notice until you maybe watch it again and you can pick up the clues. And that was one of the fun things, to just leave a little trail for people. If you go back and watch it again, you might be able to figure, oh no, I see what he's up to now. This is the past pushing back.
Right. So lastly, I want to ask you, you mentioned Mandela. You received a Golden Globe nomination for that. You've been nominated for BAFTA TV Awards, ASCAP Awards. We're an awards website, so we always are curious what that kind of recognition means for you.
Right. Well, it's very nice. It's great. I think, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones. I just love, well, this is a really boring speech I'm giving you now, but I'm in love with being a composer. I love what I do. And it gets me up in the morning, and I'm in the studio, you know, at 6 every morning when I'm working and writing, because I love it so much. So if you get nominated for, you win an award after that, that's just like a double bonus. That's fantastic. It usually means at least that it's giving some exposure to what you've done, which is great, because I love people responding to what I've done and having them feel something that I felt. So it's a double bonus, because I love writing so much. If you get an award for it, it's like, well, what's not to like about that? That's great. I love it. But, you know, I can't say more than that. It's not why I write. And I just feel lucky that I don't have to force myself to go into the office every day. I'm just like racing in there to get in there, because I want to do it so much. I love it. Give me another 10 years and we'll see where you can ask me the same question. I'll be totally ruined by then. I'll be wrecked. Like, oh, no more.
Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on your work on both of these shows. It's terrific, and thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure entirely. Okay.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.